Sam Logue here for Green Blood Boxing. Absolutely delighted to be joined by WALDO Walsh, trainer extraordinaire. One of the trainers, I would say, who's on the up at the moment. A guy who's starting to make his name in the pro game as a trainer. Dee, man, thanks very much for coming on. How are you?
Brilliant for having me, big man. Thank you very much. Really appreciate being on.
No worries, man. No worries. As I say, you're definitely one of the trainers that, especially over the last couple of years, I've started to hear more and more about. And it's obviously no coincidence that the guys that you're training are starting to really do some stuff in the pro ranks. Obviously, Lewis Crocker, PODY'S McCrory, and we see you have a young Owen ONeill as well. But of course, the two former names that I just mentioned are obviously doing big things. Yeah, I mean, there's loads to talk about, but I mean, you know, from you being a pro yourself all the way through to training the boys. But I suppose let's just start with like the lads themselves. I mean, they're the three guys that I know you're training. Is there anyone else on the books at the moment in the pro stable?
Well, I also have Connor Quinn, who is he's probably going to be fighting in January or so. But I've also of Cullen Murphy, who is he's making his pro debut here in a week's time on Saturday. Cullen was under 22 national champion, and so he's a good operator. Cullen has a great engine. He's going to do a 6th rounder on his pro debut. And there's also Rand Lennon, who is turning pro here soon. But I'm excited about them all, and it's great that we're getting the results we're getting so far.
Unbelievable, man. That's deadly. So like a growing stable as well. What are some of the things that you consider when you take a guy on? You know, when you say, okay, I'm gonna coach you as a professional fighter. What are some of the things you consider before you make that commitment with a fighter?
Well, there's 3 things. One, you have to like you. You hear me? Because I love training my fighters. Same Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I love seeing them. I love being around them. It actually makes me really happy, and they also love being around each other. And we'll have serious crackers. I see a couple of people who train with the pros, who are also my fighters. Like a good friend of mine, Yucky, his name is, and he comes and he's good crack. Do you know what I mean? He keeps everybody happy. And as I say, I want a gym where we all like each other, we all like being around each other. If you come in down, you go out happy. And I wouldn't like to train anybody at all who is ever going to bring the stable down. And I don't care if they're making 10 million a fight. I would rather not have the 10% of their 10 million to be unhappy. Because at the end of the day, I could have been, I could keep boxing myself. But one of the reasons I quit boxing was because I was so depressed.
Yeah.
So, as I say, money isn't really that big of an object to me. So I would rather be happy at the end of the day. The second thing is you have to have the ability to train hard, like really hard. Like we train pretty hard every session, and also you have to have guts too. If I know someone who is likable and they train really hard, but when they get hit the shy away, then it's no use. So that's the 3 things that I want to have. I want everybody to have before I can train.
Unreal. What was I going to say there? That's really interesting, and I think maybe not every coach or everyone has those particular, say, caveats or factors that the fighters need to hit in order for them to train them. But I suppose just to move on from that, actually, have you ever had anyone who's wanted to train with you, but they haven't met those criteria and you've had to kind of turn them away?
Oh, 100%, yeah. Even people who, for example, I do one-to-ones for a living. If I even think that in my one-to-ones, you're going to waste my time, I don't train you. And there has been in the past people who have asked me to train them, and I know for a fact that would upset the apple cart, so I'm not going to have that at all. As I say, like it was a guy come up to us here or up to the gym or a few weeks back, and he was saying to me he was impressed by the way things were going, blah blah blah. But the number one thing he was impressed with that everybody was happy, and that's why I want to keep it. And as I say, and I would knock back Floyd Mayweather if he wanted to come train.
Yeah.
Just if to keep everybody happy.
Yeah, like you can't have one guy. And I read a couple of quotes from you kind of talking about Mayweather and stuff like that as well. And the kind of that attitude and that kind of, I suppose, superstar attitude is not something that you are kind of on board with. And as you say, like you just said there, if it's something that where someone comes in and they take over the practice or the training in a negative way where it affects everyone else, it's a no-go.
Yeah.
So how do your sessions run then? Because you were saying you do kind of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you kind of have all the pros in kind of at the same time. So you run it almost like a group session with the pros. And I'm sure you do one-to-ones with the pros, especially like say the higher level guys, maybe in camp or whatever, leading up to fights. You probably spend a little bit more one-to-one time with them. But how does your pro camp, I suppose, operate on a weekly basis?
Well, as I say, there I have the group session in train for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Friday spawn. The other 2 days are either drills or whatever I want them to do in that time. But anybody who from maybe 8 weeks in before fight, what I do is I would study their opponent for maybe about a week or so. I come up with a game plan. Actually, put it this way, when we negotiate a game plan, because like at the end of the day, I could say to somebody, this is what I want you to do, X, Y, Z, but they've never done that before. So I would say to them, this is what I want you to do, X, Y, Z. And there's also alternatives to what I want them to do if they can't do a certain few things that I want them to. So the say 8 weeks out, we'll negotiate a game plan. Then we see what they're comfortable with. Then we really master it over 8 weeks. But then I would train them on a 1-to-1 Tuesday, Thursday, and a Sunday. I would do 3 1-to-1s with them a week, and we'll go over the game plan for maybe 8 weeks. So, because I know a lot of people who fight are trained to lose weight or trained to get fit. But if I have somebody who has working on a game plan for 8 weeks, then their game plan is going to be better than their opponent's game plan.
Yeah.
And you have to outdo what they've been doing for a couple of months. You know, over and over and over and over again. And I think that's where people's confidence comes from, is doing something repetitive all the time, especially it's something that they did that in the first place. So when they've done it for a couple of months on end, 3 times a week for an hour. And top of that too, to do it also in sparring in the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so they're constantly just going to work for 2 months all together. So that's what I do. So group sessions Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I would get them in for a 1-to-1.
And is that only if they're in camp, or is that all the time?
No. So when they're out of camp, I still want them to come Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But a lot of times that don't make it 3 times a week. But at the end of the day, as long as I know they've given me their best in the 8 weeks, that's the main thing at the end of the day.
Okay, that's interesting. So, because that's what I wanted to talk about as well. Like, how much are the fighters training? So, how much control do you have over the trainers or over the fighters, and how much they train when they're not in camp? So I would have thought, say, from a performance sports standpoint, that them guys should be training at least once a day, kind of 5 to 6 days a week when they're not in camp anyway. So, what's your kind of thoughts and feelings on that? And what do your guys tend to do, and how much kind of control do you have over that?
Well, in all honesty, I've noticed that when you're constantly breathing down someone's neck, sometimes you can push people away. I would like my fighters to train all year round, like 5 days a week, as you say. Not even just for the fact they get fit for fighting, but for health reasons too. Like it's important to train every single day, maybe an hour a day. But at the same time, for so many reasons, I would love them to train all year round. But at the end of the day, I don't have control over if they come or not, which is the sad truth in boxing. And if anybody who is trying to force their fighters to train all the time, and I think the fighters are probably sorry, is this still going?
Yeah, we're still going. Yeah.
Sorry, then their fighters are probably in the wrong career. But at the same time, one thing that I will say is that even I know for a fact that when my fighters are out of camp, and then say I don't see them in 2 weeks, I know they're out doing their own thing. Like for example, Lewis Crocker. Sometimes I would go on my foot saying this, but I know Lewis is in the gym like as in a public gym, or he's out running and stuff like that there, because I've seen people video him.
Yeah.
I get him on Instagram, so he's always staying on top of his shape at the end of the day. So thankfully I don't have that problem. But ideally, would still love him to be in boxing all year round.
Well, that's the thing. Like, how important is it, do you think, as like from a coach's perspective, and someone who was, well, you were 12 and I was a pro, you know what I mean? Like, you're a good fighter yourself. So how important for you, how important is it in your opinion to be in the gym on a regular basis, and maybe even all year round, because to work on technique, to work on actually improving your skill set? Whereas, you know, it's been a criticism of guys like, for example, Amir Khan and people like that in the past, of kind of going missing. Now, obviously, probably a little bit later in his career, but going missing in between camps for months, not really doing anything, and then only boxing in like a 12-week camp or whatever before the fight, you know? So how important is it, if you want to get to the very top, that the guys are in the like living in the gym and actually not necessarily breaking their body down every day, but actually just working on technical things and getting better?
Yeah, well, it is, to be honest with you, it's actually very, very, very important. It actually basically gets fatal. Because not only out there, like, even me as a coach, I'm getting better as a coach all the time, and I'm constantly bringing in new techniques and new ways of doing stuff and bringing down things more. So if somebody's taking 2 months off, they could be coming into something that could be, in a way, totally foreign to them as well. But the ones who are constantly there all year round are the ones who are seriously improving.
Yeah.
But no, I think it is actually pretty vital. Even seeing Kelly Galahad after he beat Jazzy Dickens, that he was in the gym the next day, which is, it's amazing to see. And I think it's a great example for pros also. But at the end of the day, sometimes when I know fighters, for example, when they finish a fight, they don't even want to look at a boxing gym for like a month or two. And at the end of the day, it is great if a fighter does want to be in the gym all year round, and I think that's the way to go. But there is some people who just can't do it, and it's all about the individual at the end of the day. And I understand both ways. Like for example, the Owen ONeill is one of these people who's in the gym all year round. Conor Quinn's in the gym all year round. Colin Murphy. Paddy would take a bit of a break. Lewis would take a longer break than Paddy would. But at the same time, but I'm happy with what they're doing at the end of the day, because they're getting results, and I'm happy with their progression at the same time.
Yeah, I suppose that's the main thing, isn't it? At the end of the day, that you're happy with their progression. I suppose it's just then at what stage do you think? At what stage does them being out of the gym start to limit how far they can go? You know what I mean? And I think maybe that's something that you have to navigate. You know what I mean?
100%. Well, as long as I say that they're in the gym for at least 8 weeks before fight, then we can, well, ideally would be 10, but at the same time, you could still work away it, I think. But it could hinder them if they are, if you don't see them for months on end.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, it's all about the individual, as I say.
100%. Well, I'll move on just to talk a little bit about some of the guys that you're training at the moment. I want to start with, I'll start with the man of the moment, to be honest, which is Paulie McCrory. And obviously just had a really, really impressive win against Sergey Gorakov at the FEILE a couple of weeks ago now. In a fight that was kind of talked about as a fairly even matchup. He actually made it look fairly easy. Talk to me about the fight, and kind of, especially 2 weeks removed now, what's your perspective on it? How did you feel like it went on the night? And just reflect on it for me.
You see, what happened was when Paulie get the opponent got announced, I'm not gonna lie, I was the first fight I watched, he fought a guy who was 27-0, and the guy Gorakov beat him near enough every round and then stopped him in the last round. Now, look at the scorecards, I think your guy was up getting the last round, but I don't know how that was, because Gorakov beat him, they pulp for 10 rounds and then stopped him in the last.
Jesus.
So I knew it was going to be a really hard fight. So when I know one of my fighters has a hard fight, I would do even more studying than I would usually do. And I had to make sure that the game plan was on point too. And me and Paulie went over a few things, talked about a few things we had to go over. Sparring, got a good couple of people in. The spar who was like that guy Gorkov, and Paulie done really well against him, so that gave me confidence that he was going to go in and he was going to do well against him. And I have to be totally honest with you, I thought the guy was going to be a lot better. But then that's also a good testament for Paulie because the way he handled him so well. But the number one thing, we went over a whole lot of, say for example, about 4 or 5 things that were constantly over for a couple of months. But the number one thing was the jab at the end of the day. And I kept emphasizing to Paulie the importance of the jab because I said to Paulie, especially before the start, you want to go out and really, it's going to be hard to because he's really, really tough when he comes at you. But you want to discourage him straight away with a jab. Like, yes, you want to land a few hard jabs because he's going to think twice about wanting to come anywhere near. And he did. He went out and done that straight away. But then it was the start of second round, the pace with the jab dropped a wee bit. But then at the end of the second round, I says to him, but blah, 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 you've dropped the pace with a jab, get it going again. And from then, Paulie get hit for the rest of the fight. But in the last round, or was it the second last round, they really dropped him. And I says to him about the uppercut. And he threw it twice in the round and it was absolutely perfect. One I once broke his nose and the other one dropped him. So, no, it was absolutely brilliant the way it worked out. And as I say, it actually just shows you how good Paulie is because I really rated that guy who was fighting. So, no, it was a brilliant result. And to be honest with you, I was buzzing for about a week after it.
Yeah.
It's like winning all over again when I was fighting. Do you know what I mean?
Really, yeah. You get to live kind of vicariously through your fighters now at this stage, I suppose.
Yes. Without the dadding and without the training horse. It's brilliant.
Yeah, well, you make, I suppose, different sacrifices as a coach, which people, I suppose, sometimes forget. Not the physical ones, and let's face it, you know, it's not the same as being the fighter. But of course, there are strains on the coach as well, and there are other kind of sacrifices and other kinds of, I suppose, difficulties that the coach has to do. You know, that's involved in the coach's role. Like you said, increased studying when it's maybe more of a difficult opponent, or when you're a little bit worried about the opponent or whatever. You know, it's a time-consuming role at that kind of level. It was some atmosphere though. What's it like? Do you ever think like it would have been amazing to box in an atmosphere like that as well? I know you were 12-0, but I'm not sure if you ever boxed in a massive outdoor stadium like that. Talk to me a little bit about the atmosphere at the FEILE and kind of, like, do you sit back and think, oh, I'd have loved this? Yeah,
well, at the end of the day, I'm a human being at the end of the day, and I would love to have experienced something like that. Yeah. But as I say, I'm happy with what I actually did in boxing. Like, a lot of people wouldn't be, especially when people always talk to me about how far I could have went, and I probably did only scratch the surface in terms of the level that I fought at. And but I did fight on a couple of really good undercards, like Tyson Fury, 2 Tyson Furies undercards, one the King's Hall, one the Odyssey, and I fought in one of Carl Frampton's undercards too. Unreal. And even though the FEILE was brilliant atmosphere and stuff, but I bump into my mates even nowadays who are from St James's, and they still talk to me about them nights. So, and I know my mates would have been at the FEILE supporting Paulie, but they still remember them days. It's actually somebody said to me a couple weeks ago that they were the best days of his life, and they used to go and support me all the time, because that's the type of area that area me and Paulie come from in St James's, which is just like literally a mile away from the Falls Park.
Yeah.
It's an area where everybody can support each other no matter what it is to do, whether it's football, boxing, or whatever sport. But at the same time, I'm human at the end of the day. It would have been brilliant to experience something like that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we'll pick it back up. We had a bit of some technical difficulties there, but we should be on course now to carry on. What were we saying there, Dee? I'd asked you about the FEILE and yourself and you fighting, but yeah, just I suppose if you want to just briefly finish up on that point, we were just talking about the kind of the atmosphere and yeah, and you can even touch on like what does that win mean for Paddy now? How significant of a win was that, and where does he go from here, and where would you like him to go from here?
What's the thing about it? Like, it's a beauty of boxing where, as I said, that the fact that Paulie nearly got a fight with David Lemieux in March, so you just get a call up at any time to get a fight in the top 10, and something. And at the end of the day, it can go your way, and that could set you right in line for something that you wouldn't even have dreamed of. You know what I mean? So it we'll just sit back now and then see where the road takes us, because one thing about Paulie is he's pretty professional. See me and Paulie box together from day one, and Paulie's actually he's 33, I'm 31, and I know Paulie no more than anyone will know Paulie. Me and him probably sparred more rounds together than I've ever sparred anybody as well. So the thing is with Paulie, back when we boxed together, he wasn't very dedicated, and Paulie never even really boxed in his 20s at all. So Paulie's pretty fresh. And now he's actually really dedicated. He's totally flipped to the other side now, where he wasn't really dedicated, and now he's one of the most dedicated people I know. And when he's on it in terms of nutrition, his conditioning, and in the gym, and he and obviously he trusts me as well, because the last two fights, the game plan that we've worked on, he's went out and executed it brilliantly. So he's so we'll never know where it could go with Paulie, because he is so dedicated now, and it's brilliant to see, because he's completely flipped around.
So what would you like to see from next? Where do you want him to go from here? I mean, you just said there, which is amazing. You know, he had the David Lemieux fight was like a very real possibility, and it unfortunately fell through at the last second. I mean, that sounds like, apart from the fact that sounds like actually quite a winnable fight, especially after that good win in Belfast a couple of weeks ago. You know, what a big name even to just be mentioned in. So what would you actually like to see him? Like, is there any names, or is there any kind of titles, or what kind of progression would you like him to make now?
Well, at the minute, you see Eddie Hearn is he's got a fighter. What do you call the guy that beat Yildirim in his last fight?
Jack Cullen.
Yeah, that's the one. I'd like to see Paulie up against somebody like him next. I'm not too sure who the British champion is. Is what do you call it? Their guy. He boxes in the yellow and black. Kind of like shorts.
Lerone Richards, is it? Is he super middleweight
That's the
champion?
one, yeah.
European champion now as well, isn't he?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's going to move on soon, because he's Commonwealth champion too. He's British, Commonwealth, and European. I'm sure he's going to move on soon, and they're going to need someone to fill the void in terms of British champion. I would love to see Paulie kind of going down that route with people like Jack Cullen and stuff, because even though Jack Cullen has he's boxed well his past few fights, but he's definitely a beatable fighter, and because Paulie's on such a run at the minute, he's on form. I wouldn't mind seeing Paulie with somebody like him.
Excellent. Be a great. I mean, that one, it would be a great fight, and two, it would be a great name, especially off the back of Jack Cullen winning against Yildirim, who's again maybe a guy who has a big name or a good name, when perhaps he actually hasn't really done too much or doesn't have the wins to maybe deserve that name. But he's been in with big names, so he has a big name himself.
You see, Paulie's actually ranked higher than both of them in the one in BoxRec. So definitely, even as I say, in terms of like levels, like Paulie could definitely probably yeah. I actually wouldn't mind Paulie with either one of them, even Yildirim as well. I mean, just for ranking points and staying active, and it's good, as you say, a good win in the record as well.
But that's exactly it, isn't it? Like, it's a guy who's known, and it's a good name to get on your record, regardless of the actual true level of the opponent. Yeah, but that's interesting. I like that Jack Cullen route. It's definitely a good one. Is there any Irish matchups that you'd like for Paulie? I mean, Jason Quigley's floating around that way. Luke Keeler's coming back.
Okay.
Might, you know.
I'm not too sure. I think at the end of the day, if it suited us, and the world would be, and what it would be for, and the money that you're fighting for also, like, so in the day you can't rule anything out. Because to say Paulie's on great form at the minute, and I wouldn't, like, at the end of the day, I wouldn't I would fancy him against anybody. Do you get me? Because he is on such great form, and we had to just keep his run going. So no, I wouldn't knock any fight back for Paulie.
Oh, okay, it's interesting. So you wouldn't mind kind of taking what might be deemed as a risky fight.
Well, at the end of the day, them actually the last 2 fights Paulie's had of them considered pretty risky. A guy Mickey Allison who was 12-1, I think he was. And he beat someone who was 15-0 in the fight before he fought Paulie. And then, as I say, that Russian guy Gorokov, he beat someone 27-0 in the fight before that. So you could basically say that they were two risky fights. I know there's actually a higher level of risk, but at the same time, it is what it is. Paulie actually disposed them 2 opponents pretty easily. So it could definitely step it up a level and step it up in terms of risk as well. So as I say, I wouldn't. If they give us a name, I would go away and I would find a way to beat them.
Yeah, unreal. Good to hear. Well, I hope we can get a big name for him. That would be amazing. We'll move on anyway, just to talk a little bit about a couple of other guys, and then I have a few more things to ask you about as well. But Owen ONeill, I suppose we met each other for the first time in Alicante a couple of months back. Owen ONeill was out on that bill. Owen is obviously 6-0 now. Probably a different kind of fighter to the 2 aforementioned guys. You know, Lewis and Paulie. Both were probably a little bit higher level as amateurs and stuff like that. Owen is more of a newer to the sport of boxing, I feel. Talk to me about working with Owen and just talk to me about the fight in Alicante and the progression that he's making.
Well, Owen is actually probably the first fighter that I've worked with that is actually more or less an all-out go-forward fighter. Connor Quinn would go forward. And so does Colin Murphy. But I think if I didn't work with Owen, I wouldn't be as well ahead in terms of attacking fighters as I am now. So Owen's actually helped me as much as I've helped him. And Owen's made big improvements since I started training him. And if anything, he said to me that he watched this second pro fight in the Ulster Hall, and he said that when he watched it, he was cringing watching it because he was so bad. He says, I don't want to go and watch his old fights before he's with me, because in a way I'll go away and go to myself, well, I'm happy enough with his progression now, but now I always want Owen to get better and better and better. And one thing about Owen is he's always in the gym too. So I want him just to constantly get better and better and better. And he's a lot of making up to do because he only had a handful of amateur fights. So he does need to be in the gym all year round because he, as I say, he has catching up to do. In terms of his fight in Alicante, there was a lot of things in Alicante. Like, for example, that day we were walking about for a couple of hours. We had to do like a COVID test and stuff like that there because it was like 48 hours before we actually had to fly away on the Monday game and stuff like that. But then what happened was we were on the boat looking for food, because we're with Berkey and Marty Quinn.
Yeah. And
Berkey's on pretty early, so we had to go and find food for him. So we were walking about in the sun for ages, no Betaxin and stuff like that there. So I'm not gonna lie, like, and this is no way making excuses for it. Well, he won at the end of the day, but when I was standing down his corner in Spain, I was wrecked. I'm not lying. I was wrecked. I was tired. So I was tired, I was thinking to myself as he was fighting, shit, this could be risky here because I'm tired. So I'm sure Owen's the same. And top bad, Owen had to make weight. Owen had to train when he was there. So he's going to be feeling this a lot more than I'm going to be feeling it. You know? Yeah. So he won, and he won all 4 rounds, and it wasn't comfortable at the end of the day. That guy, I actually think all them journeymen, when they got there in that trip, I think they all just went, no, it is. I actually think we're all just going to win this time. You know what I mean? Because usually get journeymen to just go and lie down, they don't want to win, but every one of them seemed to have went, do you know what, we're all going to go for us here. So, yeah. And people have to take into consideration that journeymen are tough men. They've got skill. Half the time they don't even try to win. But this time, every single one of them was. And that guy who Owen was fighting was trying to take Owen's head off and trying to kill him.
Yeah, so, he was trying to win, yeah, for sure.
So at the end of the day, I thought the first round was tight, but Owen won it. But I think Owen won the rest of the rounds, so it's easy enough.
Yeah.
Well, not easy enough, but at the same time, he won them. And I was just happy with him at the end of the day. Every time my fighters win, I'm happy. Like, and if at the end, and as I say, and if there's anything wrong with their performance, so I'm just going to crack with them. But as long as I get the win, that's the main thing.
Yeah. What have you kind of been working on with Owen, and what do you think you've brought to his game since you started working with him?
Well, the thing is, like, I can remember Owen said to me when he first started training me, he said that Crocker said to him, you've got good body, you can punch their body, but you don't seem to be able to get in to let the body shots go, if that makes sense. So a lot of times at the start we were working a lot on how to get in, and I'm not landing, as is really not exaggerating. I would say within the last maybe over a year and a half that Owen's training with me, that he's probably dropped about 12 people with body shots. So he that's what I'm saying. Like, every time I see my fighters fighting, Paulie boxed pretty well there. And even though I still think, believe it or not, I still think Paudy's even better than that performance a couple of weeks back. Every time I see Lewis fighting, I still think Lewis has got so much more than that performance. Like, at the end of the day, like, his last few performances were absolutely brilliant. But I know, and Lewis knows too, and our whole camp knows that Lewis is probably 10 times better than the performance that he's been given. And that's not saying that his performances are bad in any way, but everybody knows how good he is. And as I say, when you see Owen in sparring and he's beating people up, dropping them, Owen's even better than that too. Like, that performance in Spain was probably Owen at 30-40%. You get me? So when he fights a 6th rounder here, that I think it was announced today at that show, he's fighting a 6th rounder in his next pro fight. I'm looking forward to seeing it because Owen is a body puncher, and I'm interested to see how people are able to take his shots. As I say, like, in a 4-round fight, it can be stolen away from me sometimes because everything's just so fast and stuff like that there. But over a 6-round fight, it's a wee bit longer. So it'll be interesting to see how people take his body shots over a longer period of time. You get me?
100%. And I was going to mention that obviously they announced today, Boxing Ireland Promotions, that their October 2nd show in the Devonish in Belfast is a go ahead, and it's as I say, happening on the 2nd of October. Just to repeat myself there unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And obviously Owen is the first name who's been announced on the card. They're talking about this one as, you know, Owen's going to bring a lot of sell a lot of tickets for this, bring a lot of friends, a lot of family, a lot of people down to watch. Does that make a difference? I mean, do you think that can have an effect on a fighter's performance, especially Owen, and Owen, or will that bring the best out in Owen? And as you said, then the factors that of like the fight being a bit longer, being 6 rounds this time. Do you expect, all things considered, do you expect a much better performance from Owen ONeill in next fight out?
Well, 100%. I forgot how good the crowd, having the crowd was there until the FEILE, and because Owen has such good support, I think he'll perform even better with the crowd there. But unfortunately, one thing he was telling me today is that he's got a really, really short, limited amount of tickets because of the COVID restrictions, and he's absolutely gutted about it. Because I don't know if you've been in Owen ONeill fight before, fast, but he is, like, everybody loves him. He's a lovely guy, and he's actually the only professional boxer in North Belfast, and North Belfast has had people like Ryan Burnett, Carl Frampton, Paddy Barnes, but obviously they're all retired now, so Owen's the only one left, and because he's so likeable, everybody supports him, and the atmosphere is always absolutely amazing at Owen's fights. So I think we've got it about the limited amount of tickets, but at the same time, I reckon the people will happen, and he'll perform better when he's got more people there for him.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I've been promised a big show. I've been promised a big event. And by Owen himself, when I was chatting to him, he's talking about bringing a lot of people and making a big show. So I can't wait. But we'll move on a little bit. I mean, well, I'll tell you what, we'll just touch on Lewis Crocker as, I suppose, the star man in your stable at the moment, Dee. what's next for Lewis, and when can we expect to see him out?
I think they're talking maybe starting November. I don't know where, I don't know who it's going to be against, but I think that's the date that they have in mind at the minute. So Lewis is now pushing up. Really, he's high up in the rankings too, and at the end of the day, the welterweight division is probably the toughest division in boxing. It has been for last long time, maybe since when Mayweather graced it. It's probably been the best. Mayweather, Pacquiao, and the Earl Spence, Terence Crawford, and stuff at the top now. But even anybody in the top, Lewis is actually, I think, number 40 in box rec. Every fight from here on in is going to be a hard fight.
Yeah.
So he has to be ready for it, and he will be ready for it. So no matter who they pick, whatever name they pick, I had to say the same thing with Paulie. We'll just have to we'll find a way to beat them.
Is there anyone that you like for Lewis? Any names that you like for him, or any particular route that you like for him? Like, would you like Lewis to kind of chase the British route or anything like that?
Well, definitely, because Lewis is a proud Northern Irishman. So no, definitely British. British is such a prestigious title. I think who's the champion at the minute? Essiman.
Yes.
I would love Lewis to fight him. Maybe I actually wouldn't care if he fought him next. I really wouldn't. For the title.
Confident in that win.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it would be ideal if you had a warm-up fight for him, but you're not going to get a warm-up fight for him because it's such a high level at welterweight, and because he's so highly ranked. But if they told us next is Essiman, 100% I'd go for it all day long, because it's, as I say, British is such a prestigious title. It's a fight that is it's definitely winnable. With Lewis, all fights are winnable, but but I would definitely love to go for a British title. Like,
what are Lewis's best attributes? And as he pushes up the ranks and gets further up, I suppose, as he pushes up the ranks and starts to fight better fighters, better fighters all the time, what are his attributes that are going to allow him to be successful as he steps up those levels?
It's hard to put your finger on one attribute that Lewis has that stands out from the rest, because he's so good at everything. Believe it or not, like, people at the start used to see Lewis when he fought first lot of pro fights as seen his punch power. Then they seen him as an aggressive fighter when people knew about his punch power, like the journeyman that he was fighting, and they were like, "Nah, I'm not going to mix with him." So they just started kind of running away from him. So he went, I think it was a 5 or 6-0, 5-0, 6-0 maybe, with 6 knockouts. Then he won a few fights without knocking anybody out at all. Then he fought Louis Green, and then people actually started saying, "Shit, Lewis can box." I've always knew Lewis could box anyway. I helped out with Lewis in his first few pro fights. I wasn't his coach, but I helped out, and I seen that he could box, like hit and move. So, and he could not only just do it, but he could do it brilliantly. So I always knew he had it in him. Then people started seeing it a wee bit more with Louis Green. But if it was to put my finger on one attribute, is probably his boxing. His skill in boxing is hitting and not getting hit. And if you've seen Lewis, his footwork, head movement, all that, it's absolutely brilliant. So, and that's not even including his punch power, because he's the hardest puncher I've ever took in the pads. And people like Paulie wouldn't even be offended by me saying that, because Paulie knows, like, Lewis hits like an absolute, he hits like a heavyweight. Yeah,
that's crazy, isn't it? Like how someone who's, Paulie in comparison to Lewis, we're talking about a welterweight against a super middleweight there. What's a couple of stone in the difference in weight, roughly, give or take?
Well, fight, I think it's like maybe 10 kilo, which 10 is kilos. Nearly, stone and a half, say.
Okay.
So, yeah. But Paulie, as I say, remember we were sitting in the lobby one time before Paulie's fight with Mickey Allison, and we were all sitting there before the COVID. Kind of, they were giving you a rundown on what way it works and what way they're going to work it, blah, blah, blah. And it was a week after Lewis had just beat Louis Green. Yeah. And all the English guys were sitting there and they were sitting talking. And it says, like, about Lewis and how hard is he punching. Paulie went, he hits like a heavyweight, and they all started going, no, like he doesn't. And Paddy was going, look, I've sparred heavyweights, I've sparred Lewis. Lewis punches harder than heavyweights. And they're all like, they didn't really get it. But when you take him on the pads and spar him, you go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I get you. Yeah.
That's intimidating, isn't it? And I suppose a lot of guys know that. But does that pose problems at times, especially as you go up the levels against guys who not only are better fighters and more clever, but they also have, you know, very good coaches, very clever coaches who are aware of these things. So does it become like almost not a problem, but like something that you have to kind of work around and factor into your game when you're planning for the opponent? You know what I mean?
Well, in all honesty, like I've said to Lewis from day one, and Lewis is now ingrained this in his head himself, that punch power is only a bonus. It's only a bonus. Like, say at the end of the day, you have to hit the opponent.
Yeah.
And it's that the higher the level the opponent goes up, they're going to get harder to hit. As you say, the coaches get better, they're going to get more trickier, they're going to get more awkward, which means they're going to get more skilled. Like, that's called spade a spade. So hitting people like that is going to be harder. So we don't even talk about punch power. The only time we actually talk about punch power, see when we get the place and the gloves are sitting there and they're 8 ounces.
Yeah.
We try like, oh, like this is scary. Like, because 8 ounces are basically like wearing a pair of magic gloves, you get me? And he knows himself. Do you get me? He actually got excited the last time he seen the 8 ounce gloves sitting there when he was fighting that German guy, because they're so small and Lewis punches so hard. That guy's head was made, I think it was a bowling ball, like, really. Because the way he's able to take in punches. But as you say, it is going to be harder. So all we do is focus on hitting and not getting hit at the end of the day. And if they go, they go. But if they don't really care, as long as you get the win.
Yeah,